of scams and ruses that we're using to avoid making the difficult decisions today. And we can think about this. It's an accountancy scam. It allows us to do all sorts of things. It allows us to exchange between different greenhouse gases. So we can start to substitute, and this is substitution is a real accountant's dream, if you like, a bean counter's dream. You can say, I'll swap a few molecules of CO2 for a molecule of methane. Well, these are very different in terms of how long they last in the atmosphere, their chemistry in the atmosphere, the levels of certainty involved with them. You then say, well, we'll think about the carbon dioxide from a car journey today versus animal husbandry projects in 2030 that might affect methane emissions. Well, now you're passing it over time between a guaranteed emission from a car or a plane today and possible changes from methane emissions in pigs in 2030. And then you think, well, maybe we'll plant some trees and we'll talk about carbon dioxide absorption in 2035 versus some industry emitting today. So we then substitute between greenhouse gases that have very different chemistries, very different times in the atmosphere, very different levels of certainty, and then we pass it across time as well. And so this allows us to do all sorts of scams in our spreadsheets to make it look like we're doing quite well, whether that's a company, an institution, even an individual, and certainly for countries. And then another scam on top of that, I think sort of like the cherry on top of the scam cake, are these things called negative emission technologies that sound that they exist, that, let's just use negative emissions. We say it now and it doesn't sound odd to us anymore because we've used that language for so long, for the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years, if not a little bit longer now, that almost like, well, of course we can just use negative emissions, but there are no negative emission technologies out there at scale. There are a few pilot schemes and they just capture a few thousand tons here and a few thousand tons there, whilst we're putting 40 billion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every year. And so they're another scam in the spreadsheet. So rather than have to do something early in the spreadsheet in the year 2024, 2025, 2026, you can say, oh no, we'll apply some negative emissions in 2035 or 2040. That means we don't have to make those difficult changes today. So at every level, you can scam this net zero. And this is why you find BP, Shell, Exxon, Saudi Aramco, they've all got net zero targets. The UK, Canada, the US, the Saudis, they've all got net zero targets. We all have net zero targets, yet we're all seeking more fossil fuels.
Right.
So we're all in net zero. Everyone's bought into net zero. Surprisingly, the emissions keep going up and the temperature keeps going up. So somewhere in it, the physics has said we can see through that scam. But the rest of us, we love it because it deludes us and it allows us to avoid those deeply political, difficult questions we do not want to have to ask. Or worse, we don't want to have to answer them.
So you had a lot of things that